Welcome, everyone. Hello. I think I see a lot of familiar faces from yesterday, so maybe we don't do like a very, very long introduction. My name is Anton from the Dialogue for Innovation project, and we are happy to come to the second workshop from the Innovation Camp, which is, I hope more people join us because it's more practical and very concrete. We'll be using a very interesting tool that helps us think about these complex problems that we talked about yesterday. So, and we'll give a bit of introduction, of course, today. Just a sense, because I'm good with faces, but maybe I forgot. Just can you raise your hand if you were with us yesterday for the discussions? Okay, so I see only 2 people that didn't go. So maybe it's a familiar group, and we'll start. So today we want to get a bit of an introduction on the population in rural areas as a challenge, just the content of it. Yesterday there was a lot of talk about that, but just a bit also the expert opinion from the JRC. Then we'll present the tool, the multi-level perspective, that we think in our project is one of the tools that's really supportive of working of administrations with this kind of problems. You can use it, and we'll discuss that also for other challenges. And then we'll form working groups where we'll apply the tool and we use it, and then we'll give a bit of feedback and reflect how it can be used. So to be very practical, we'll be working with some very nice cards. Somebody was saying it's an innovation camp. We have some equipment for you for the camp, you know, not tents and booths, but some cards and some colorful things that we play with the tool. And then in the end, we'll fill together a big Miro board, so we kind of create something together that you can use in the end. So I hope that by the end of today, we have some good product also and some learning between ourselves. Yes, so without further ado, I will invite Fernando Merida from the Joint Research Center. He's an innovation expert to tell us more about the population. I mean, we were so deep yesterday, but another perspective and a little bit more expert opinion.
Thank you, Anton. Again, it's a pleasure for me to be here with you talking about this very, very, very interesting topic, and very important topic that appears for us at the JRC to be a new project, a new activity, not the population itself, but the rural development, rural revival, let's say, no? But the population is one of the main aspects of the problems that are facing rural areas. We at the JRC, as I told you yesterday, and as we are more or less the same people, the JRC has been working with territories for many years. The unit I am part of is specialized in working with territories and in implementing innovation strategies through these, I don't know. Implementing innovation strategies from a different point of view, and from different point of view that is based in the comprehensive analysis of the territories, in trying to understand what are the drivers or what are the challenges that territories are facing. So when we have started to work in rural territories, specifically into rural territories, we have applied the same approach, in trying to understand. Before starting to define something, we need to really understand things. So at the JRC, we are working in 3 main lines with rural territories. The first and more important one is the Rural Observatory. That is a tool that we have launched last December in close cooperation with other DGs, DG Agri and DG Regio. This Rural Observatory is trying to inform, trying to identify data and offer data to rural policymakers and to rural researchers in order for them to have available data, relevant data for the definition of policies. The second thing that we are doing is the rural toolkit, this in close connection with DG Regio, that is trying to create a tool that allows rural territories to better identify what are the funding sources that they can use in the different activities they are going to do. And the third one is the one that I am working in, that is the Startup Village Forum that I mentioned yesterday, that is an an initiative that is trying to change a bit the approach. We are trying to define different elements that could be complementary with the traditional policies that have been related more directly to agriculture, livestock, forestry, and trying to identify in which other ways we can use the new tools, the new technologies, or the new sensitivities in order to revitalize rural territories. So this is the background in which we are moving. And coming back to the main title of the presentation, in the population in rural areas,
Sorry, just point it here.
Oh, yes.
And arrow.
Yeah. So, no, this one. Okay. So when we have started to work in this process, we have identified that the population is part of a bigger problem, that is rural decline. No? Rural decline can be identified as an inevitable process in a way. No? When you consider that a certain typology of system is obsolete or it's not enough able to provide well-being to a certain society, you are going to experience a change. People is trying to find the better conditions to live. So in this particular case, it's a process that has been driven by the transformation of an old regime based in agriculture in these territories. That has not been able to face the new urban industrial economy, the urban industrial economy that has been happening for almost 2 centuries, and in particular now the knowledge economy. So rural territories are not able to be so attractive places like the other ones. No? And of course, if you consider what has been happening since the industrialization, many years ago, the migration from the countryside is a very natural component of this process. So it's nothing new. It's something that has been more evident in the second half of the 20th century, and this is still in place, but it's a natural component. And of course, this process has been very much relevant in the second half of the 20th century, although it started in the first industrial revolution. And of course, the timing and the situation differs from one territory to another. There are territories, and we are going to see some graphics afterwards, that have experienced these processes more than 150 years ago. So the situation of these territories is more adaptive to the new reality than other territories that has started to experience the problem after that time. No? But in any way, the situation is clear that this migration, this importance, this more relevant capacity of urban territories has driven to a decline of rural territories. So one of the most important effects of this rural decline is rural depopulation. And one of the most important effects of this rural depopulation is the brain drain and the loss of talent. The loss of talent is really a very significant problem that limits the capacity of these places to offer different opportunities to those that are living there. The loss of people living there is then affected by a reduction of different living conditions that are in those places. So if you have not enough people there, you are not going to have the same kind of services. If you are not going to have enough people, the schools are going to be closed. If you are not having a certain number of people, the health services are going to be far away from your place. But not only in terms of public elements, but also in private elements. You are not going to have businesses. You are not going to have specific services provided by private shops. You are not going to have the bakery close by in some cases, and you have to buy your bread to a transportation man that is coming from other places. And of course, you are going to have also the lack of financial services at your place. So it's a continuation continuation of degradation of the capacities of the places, but that it's also going to affect to another social components, because probably the other ones are more related with economic component, but also the lack of people, the continuous loss of people is going to reduce the community-based autonomy, is going to reduce the social interaction between the people, is going to reduce then the institutional capacity of the municipality, and of course the competence that they can offer to the citizens, to the people that are living there. So the conditions are going to be worse and worse and worse in the future. And of course, this process brings economic benefits to the other places where the people is moving, reducing the capacities that you are having in your territorial areas, in the rural areas. So, as I said, I have some graphics here for you to acknowledge the reality that you probably very well know. If you consider, these are data from the World Bank, if you consider what has been the evolution in the last 60 years, you see that in the case of the EUSAIR member states, you see that there is a clear decline in terms of rural population in all the cases. In all the cases, there are some cases that are more evident or more evident in the last 20 years, but there is a tendency that is similar to all the places. There is a tendency similar. If you go to every particular case, of course, there are cases that are the population has been more impactful. But in any case, you can see the tendency is there in these 10 countries. But if you consider all the countries as well, if you consider this is another country, another typology of countries, you see again several countries like the ones in the bottom line. Greece, Spain, United States, United Kingdom, France, Sweden, Finland, all of them are in the same tendency. All of them are, or Ireland, all of them are suffering the same thing. But of course, if you see China has experienced a huge reduction of population in rural areas because of the industrialization of China from the 80s and onwards. So there is a clear indication that industrialization processes affects a lot the situation of the countries. And when you consider the United Kingdom or United States, you see that the lines are not so important currently, because they have experienced this process many years before. And yeah.
Just to be sure, this is the percentage of population so not kind of total amount.
No. The percentage of rural population. Yes, rural. Sorry. So the situation is similar in these countries that are well-developed countries that has started the industrialization process decades ago. But if you go to other countries that are not in this situation of heavy industrialization process or even knowledge economy processes, you can see in these cases that again the population is happening again in the same continuous tendency of decline. So yeah, there is a clear indication that when the old regime based on agriculture fails, people try to find another place where they can earn their lives, and probably in most of the cases, cities and urban economies are offering better conditions. So, going to the case of Europe and introducing with this slide what is happening in Europe and what are the policies that the European Union is trying to put in place in order to reduce this. We have been looking at before in the previous slides global information about countries. If we go to a bit deeper on the situation and we go to this regional approach, you cannot see from your places, but the different grades of red here indicates more impact of the population than this pink one, and this blue one I will explain later. This blue one are regions that are also affected by rural depopulation, but are regions that are receiving migrants, but they are not receiving migrants enough to reduce the depopulation of rural areas. So you can see, of course, this belt, as they denominate it, this belt that is from the eastern countries and then to the south, making this kind of arc from Finland to Portugal, no? This kind of arc. Of course, there are some spots in the Central Europe that are also suffering rural depopulation, but in a way, the effect is not so evident, not so important in terms of regional policies that these countries are going to implement. Yesterday we have this, in these exercises we made, I was participating in a table with other colleagues from Bosnia in particular, and they were discussing about, there is a real need for having policies fighting with the population. There is really a need. It's important to put so much effort in order to revitalize these places, or we should abandon them, because at the end of the day, well, what's the point if they are not able to find the right instruments or the right niches for them to survive? What's the point to maintain that? What I think that this is important to see the text there. That's the reason that it's important to define this kind of policies and to implement this kind of policies, because we are talking about high percentage of people, high percentage of territories, high percentage of people that really need some kind of activities. Concentrated in creating capacity for them, because if not, we are going to have a very important democratic problem. It's not only a question of growth or well-being, it's a democratic thing. There are a lot of people, a third of the European population is living in these places. So there is, of course, a need to identify why these things are happening and identify what could be the instruments or the policies more appropriate in order to try to reduce this situation. So if we go to the next one, we are going to see here, according to this different literature review that I have made, we can see here 4 main reasons, let's say, for this depopulation process to happen. And this is important to have in mind, because when I insist a lot in this process of understanding what is happening, I think that it is essential to have a good understanding of the situation that we are going to face. And once we have this understanding, we will be able to define policies or instruments that are going to be successful or effective. If we don't go that way, we probably failed. And these 4 main processes are happening. And most of them are happening at the same time. It's not only a question that the population process of a given territory is because of economic restructuring. It probably will be related with another of the process mentioned. But I think that it's important to see what can be the most relevant characteristics of each process, and then be able to respond to the main topics that we have here. So in the case of economic restructuring, this is very close to the initial idea that we have been talking from the very beginning. Is a regime, the economic regime that fails and need to define need the definition of different other opportunities. Now, in this case, of course, we are talking about this dramatic change of agricultural structures that has very severe socioeconomic consequences that are still happening in most of these eastern and southern countries, that has not only been related with this decline because of the agricultural problems, but also because some industries that were related with these rural areas as extractive mining industries or manufacturing activities has disappeared because of the globalization, because of the lack of capacity or competitiveness of the business. So these places has lost most of the elements that were the drivers that make the people living there. No? Then very close to this one, probably we would have this locational disadvantage. This is more, when the first one is more socioeconomic, this is more geographic. No? When considering, for instance, these isolated places or this sparsity that are suffering several regions in Europe, for instance, in the case of Finland and Lapland and all of these places, but not only there. in Spain we have 2 or 3 regions that are experiencing the same problems. Regions that has a very, very limited percentage of people living there in a very, very big space. So sparsity, isolation, or lack of natural resources in terms of, for instance, if there is a clear reduction of water in the place, of course, people has to move because there is no point, there is no way to create water. And of course, in other places has been surviving for centuries probably with a very minimum capacity of their soils to produce something. But today probably the soil is exhausted and they have no probability of creating something new. So this situation hampered the possibility of creating life in these places. So people has to go. And it's important to consider that most of these places are close to borders. Spaces that in the countries were abandoned because of historical reasons, and these empty spaces there are really, really difficult for people to live there. No? The third case is, again, very connected with economy, and it is in a way related with globalization, how places that has weak economies but at least enough to survive can face the problems of globalization. For them it's going to be impossible. So it's another factor that starts the process of depopulation. And of course, this kind of disruptive events or political or systemic transitions. When I was looking at these tables of the World Bank about Bosnia, for instance, of course, there is a regular tendency of declination, but in the times of war, the situation changed completely because there is an external event to the geography or to the economy, or is more related with society and political things. No? So all of these processes that are going to lead to the population has to be clearly understood what are the connections between them, what are the prevalence of one or one of them to the other in order to better understand the situation. So in the case of European Union, what has been the responses of European Union to these problems? As we said before, this is not a problem that has appeared suddenly 10 years ago. This is something that is happening for a long time. And if you consider what is probably one of the main importance of the common agricultural policy, of course, has been related, of course, there is some importance, a very important part of this policy that is, well, to protect the capacity of Europe to produce food and so on. But also there is a very important component of mitigating the population. It's an important component of trying to retain people in the places. So most of the instruments related with people in the common agricultural policies has been trying to mitigate, trying to retain population there through subsidies and things like that. That has been useful in some way in some countries or not in other countries. And of course, the policies that these approaches from the European Commission that member states has put in place has as well been useful or not. In the case of Spain, and we were discussing yesterday, the two very important rural, not only rural, but with a very significant importance of rural component, like Andalusia and Extremadura in the south of the country, of Spain, has been working a lot in this kind of subsidies policy. So you can see now that these regions have a lot of population in rural areas, comparing with other regions in Spain that has lost a lot of population in the rural areas because they have not applied this subsidies policy. So the situation changed a lot, but mainly the main idea that I would like to discuss here is that these main drivers that has motivated this policy has been mitigation of the problems. And then more beyond that policy that the European Union put in place is the policies that member states and even regions has the opportunity to put in place. But these policies are more granular approach has not been triggered by the European Union. So the European Union has left completely independence to the member states and to the regions the policy that they has to implement. So that's why we can see, as I mentioned before in Spain, cases that in the same country presents completely different situations. And of course, there is not a coherence and a common strategy, because we are not talking about common agricultural policy. Of course, we are talking about cohesion policy. Cohesion policy has a main element of the cohesion policy is cohesion. Is trying to reduce the differences between the regions that are part of Europe. So one of the important part of the cohesion policy should be try to protect these areas that are suffering a lot. So, and then there are all the transversal strategies like Lisbon strategy that is also in a way also connected with this thing, but there is no a common, a coherent strategy and approach at the European level, and of course at member state level and at regional level that could be more effective and more appropriate. So, how we should try to tackle rural depopulation, no? How we can do that, no? As I said before, we need to identify in which way we can appreciate in a coherent way the things that are happening there. What are the triggers, what are the drivers, what are the conditions that are happening there? And of course, if we take only attention to one element without taking into account the interaction of this element with a panoply of other elements, we are probably going to define actions that are going to be based in misjudgments or even anachronic assumptions. We are not going to be very well prepared in order to tackle this problem if we not use this kind of systems thinking approach in order to analyze everything that is part of everything and the interaction that are happening there. Because there are some solutions that has been put in place more an informal way than an informal way. It's not part of, it has been not part of our official policy, but the politicians and the administrations have tended to support this idea, like the tourism in rural areas. No? Tourism in rural areas is offering some kind of benefit, of course, because through tourism, some areas are revitalizing themselves and using some of the earnings that are getting from tourism. But in some cases, the gentrification of rural areas has happened as a result of this, making rural areas losing the traditional elements, the socio-economic interactions between these people. So that there could be unexpected effects that are going to reduce this well-being that we are looking for, because the amount of people that is going to live as a second residence from cities to the rural areas are not going to form part of the socio-economic tradition of the rural areas, putting on the table a lot of potential troubles of convivence between the people. So again, we need to have this system thinking approach. And of course, this system thinking approach should take into account this vision and goals, policy rationale, implementation and governance. So you need, of course, to identify the complexity of the problems. You have to go beyond the economic growth, and I think that this is clear in the long-term vision for rural areas that the European Commission has launched a year and a half ago, or almost 2 years ago, is taking into account this thing. We are not talking only about wealth, we are talking about sustainable well-being, no? That, of course, it has a very important socio-economic part, of course, no? But we need to go beyond that, not only talking about economic growth. And also we need to understand that rural areas are also affected, or should also be affected, by the new technologies and the new changes and the new opportunities that are appearing there. We need to go forward. We need to not we need not only to think in agriculture, livestock and forestry as the only element that could help these places to survive. We need to think and to understand that there are many other elements now that could be put in place in rural areas. Energy, renewable energies, sandboxes, and many other things that could be placed there. But again, we need to take very clear into account that renewable energies and a lot of windmills or a lot of photovoltaic plants could affect the traditional living conditions of people living in rural areas, because they are going to lose farms, they are going to lose agricultural space and so on. Again, so we need to have this system thinking approach. And of course, we need to take into account that, of course, we are obliged to understand what is happening in the territory. But we cannot think only in the territory when thinking about the solutions. So this is the place-based, but not place-bound, no? So it's a combination of both elements has to be put in place. And then when implementing policies, we need really a good governance, because at the end of the day, we are living in these very complex situations, very complex societies, and very complex political systems when you have the European level, the national level, the regional level, and the local level. And the interactions between those different kind of administration are always difficult, and of course varies from one country to the other. And we have countries in Europe that are very centralized, and everything is dominated by the central government, like in Portugal, for instance, where the regions has not really a huge power to decide. And then we have other countries like Spain that is very decentralized, and there are a lot of people having the possibility to make an opinion. So how to create the interaction between these bodies is also as important as a good vision and a good goal. And coming to the end, I think there are some conclusions that I think in a way has been mentioned during the presentation, that the decline of rural areas fuels popular discontent. And this is really, really an important topic that we have to have in mind, taking into consideration what is happening in Europe and what is happening with this, situation that in different European territories are now causing stress and a lot of problems because of a part of the population is considered left behind. So this is really an important conclusion. We need to make this kind of recalibration of rural development. We are not talking only about growth, we are talking about well-being. Because when talking about well-being, we are incorporating to this equation a different variable, but this is a really important variable. We are looking for the well-being not only of those who are living there, but of those that would like to live there, but they don't consider even the possibility of going there because they have no roads, or they have no school for the children, or they are not going to have really a good opportunity for earn a dignified salary. And of course, in order to have this possibility of recalibration and everything, we have to reevaluate the logic. We need to reevaluate the logic that is going to be then put on the table policies and instruments. The logic that has been in place for many, many years, it was this logic of mitigation. So the logic of mitigation, of course, could be considered as a minor solution, but today we cannot say that it has been an effective solution. It's not. The rural depopulation, you remember the slides, is continuous for many years. And of course, we are in this changing situation. It was something related with technology, it was something related with society, it was something related with health. When all of us remember 3 years ago, when the pandemic started, this idyllic idea of returning to rural, to the open spaces, to the contact of nature, and to the teleworking opportunities, and and so on and so forth. What has been the result of this COVID thing? How many people is really living? How many people has changed their life in order to try to find a well-being in rural areas? Nowadays, 3 years after, not so many. Not so many. And the policies that the countries and the member states are putting in place in most of the cases, are not favoring this situation. So again, we need to think that goodwill is not only a good element to lie on. You need really to define the policies. And of course, the situation that we are facing here is probably better than years before. Years before, these mitigation policies has been there. No attention has been paid for many years about the effectiveness of these policies. But today, situations have changed. Not only European Commission level, of course, but also because probably of this changing things that are happening, our member states, countries, regions, and municipalities are also considering the possibility of putting in place new models. But these new models, and this is the final line of my presentation, need a systemic approach. A systemic approach is an absolutely need for understanding how things could be changed. And the population is a huge problem that Europe has faced for many years, and now that the situation is in a positive way, that there are a lot of interest and there are a lot of capacities, a good approach, it will be the systemic approach. If not, probably we are going to fail again, and we are going to define policies similar to this one that were mitigating the problem but not facing the problem. So, any question? I will happy to respond. Okay.
I have a question. Do you have any more new statistics from the last couple of years that due to the pandemic, more people started to move out again from the bigger cities to places where they want to stay and that they are able to do because of the fact that they can telework, for example?
We don't have a specific statistics on that. We are working on that in this rural observatory tool. The thing that we have seen in some informal analysis that we have made is that in some countries the tendencies of returning to rural villages were really significant in the first year, but they are not so significant today. And there are a lot of people that went to rural areas and has returned because the teleworking decisions that the companies made at the very beginning were not so maintained in time. So we need to make a formal analysis of that, but we cannot see. Of course, there is a huge difference between countries, and there are countries that were more used to before the pandemics to use the teleworking as a possibility, but we need to make an additional analysis. Yeah.
Apart from the global data that I understand are not existing, sorry, do you have an idea if really this, I mean, if people could have teleworking, they would move in rural areas? Because they say, if this is true, all the things we are saying that we need, I work in this, sorry. I work with this also. So we need services, there are no schools, there are no streets, there are no digital. And then we say that if they have the possibility to work there from other companies, at the end it means that many people are not staying in rural areas because of employment and not because of all the other things. So maybe the attractivities of the place, nature, whatever, are enough if you also can have a job. So it's also money. So this would be, I think, interesting, but I don't know if we have data. Because in our region, we are looking for that, but we have no, some anecdotal examples, but not really any clue of a clear tendency on this.
Yeah, we don't have it. We don't have it. We have, as you say, probably the same. We have some informal approaches to the thing. But in my opinion, I think that teleworking or digital nomads, that is another element that to be considered, could help to revitalize in some way rural areas, but I'm not convinced that they are going to make a considerable difference. At least in the short term. Maybe in the medium and long term it could help much more, because of course if a given village of 1,000 people living there receive 25 families that are able to telework. These 25 families are going to create something, are going to create the need of services, are going to probably increase the capacity of the municipality to get funds from the regional government, increase the right to ask for the regional government to have a school or a bigger school or a health service. So maybe in the long run, this could help. But I'm not sure about that, because again, these teleworking things depends on the decision of those that own the companies, of the administration. For instance, in Spain, it was just after the confinement in June, July 2020, it was proposed by the government a new decree that creates wonderful conditions for people willing to go to the countryside, in particular for the government, for the public administration. This royal decree is not in place since then. The minister that was in charge of these things moved from this responsibility to another one, and the one that takes that responsibility was not convinced about the teleworking thing. So nothing has happened. So you cannot trust in these kind of things, because probably are going to be evolutioning in a way that you don't know what is going to be. For instance, the great technology companies like Microsoft and Apple and all of these ones, I read some days ago that they are reconsidering these teleworking opportunities, and they would prefer to have people working in the offices. So again, I think that probably you need to have a wider view and try to take other technological opportunities to create a sound environment where the revitalization could happen. Because at the end of the day, again, this is a process that started, as we said at the very beginning, in some places it started 150 years ago or more. So we are not going to solve it in 10 years. This is something that is going to start moving in another direction, but we should expect results in 20 years or more. Yep.
I'm sorry. I have just a very big question, because I think I joined the session a little bit 10 minutes after, but I would like to understand why we want to keep people in the rural areas. That is really for me, that because I understand everything, but you know, like this transition that we, for industrialized countries, and what kind of activities we want to actually create there. Why we want to keep the people there? Because at the end we see that our society is not based on agriculture so much anymore, at least in Europe. So, yeah, it's really very sorry for the question.
This is a very important question, and we discussed yesterday in a table where I was participating. And I think that as I said in one of the conclusions, that there is people living there has the right to live there if they will. When you analyze the situation, of course, you have to take into account the willingness of these people to live or not. They are free to decide. But if they want to be there, they of course they have the right. They pay their taxes. They have the similar right to other ones. But trying to go beyond this democratic approach, if you consider that there is a lot of opportunities in these places for new industries, for new industrial developments that could be based in knowledge, that would be not necessarily based in agriculture activities. Of course, you can associate a lot of activities to agriculture, like cosmetics, like many other things, like creative industries that could be in that areas. But if you consider the potential of energy, the potential of new small industries related with, for instance, with 3D printing that would not need a huge amount of money or a huge amount of people, but could produce a lot of tools that could be useful for those people that are living there. So the need to think about it, and your question is very appropriate because, well, it's a question that is in the baseline of this analysis. Do we need to keep these people there? Do we need to prepare policy for that? And in the analysis, you can go to a different approach that is, are these places offering our country opportunities to develop new industries?
Also what we aim with.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I like your question because this is the kind of questions that we ask when we take systemic approaches, that what it's more relevant, to keep people in the rural areas, or the objective is to guarantee that the people living in rural areas have a high quality of life, so that the people deciding to live there can live there if they want, but it's not about putting so many people there. Now, all the policies are oriented at keeping people in rural areas, but when we take this systemic approach, maybe is this an objective, or the objective is to guarantee a quality of life, but maybe if we want to preserve the biodiversity, the nature, or the natural heritage, maybe it's better that less people live there. So these are open questions that when we only look at policies and we stay in this frame, we take this an objective, but then when we go to systemic approach, then it's where we are starting to work with this kind of questions. And in fact, this is the issue for the workshop we are doing. No, it's about, we start asking this question, what is the objective? Is maybe it's positive that there are less people living there, because then we will have
more green areas?
Or maybe we see
new potential.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's maybe
yeah, but that is the question we say that we need to ask ourselves, not just be trapped by these policies or these old documents and strategies, but, and this is an opportunity also to rethink many things. And this is the kind of exercises that we want to promote with the project that we are starting for the next years in the Mediterranean, to start that stakeholders ask themselves these kind of questions, because then we will decide if these policies are useful or not. Or maybe for some regions, yes, and not for others. So thank you for the question.
Maybe it's a good, thank you, Fernando. Do you wanted to add something? Yeah, maybe it's a good segue to our next short intro before we start the exercise. So I invite Elvira Gonzalez from our project, from the Dialogue for Innovation, maybe we just jump out a little bit of the rural areas topic and we look into the two that we want to explore this afternoon. So Elvira, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anton. And thank you for the question, because it is a perfect link to this second part of what is foreseen now. Yeah. So, yeah, indeed, we will zoom out a little bit from the challenge of the population in rural areas. And I need them. Okay, and this is what the Dialogue for Innovation project is about. It is embedded, as we saw yesterday, in the mission for strengthening an innovative, sustainable economy. And the first thing to understand about the project, which we are going to test today, also with this innovation camp, with the second workshop of the innovation camp, is has adopted this systemic and transformative innovation approach. And that links also with what Fernando has been saying, systemic analysis, systemic approach, and also transformative innovation. It is not about only, and this is our goal always, it is not about changing marginal things, marginal innovation. It's about transformation. And it's about transformation for complex challenges. Otherwise, with marginal innovation, we will not get where we want to go. With marginal innovation, we don't know what to go. We don't know really what we want to achieve within complex challenges. The Dialogue for Innovation project focuses on capacity building, which is what we are doing today, and on methodologies and tools that help address these complex challenges. One of them is the population in rural areas, but there are many challenges related with Med priorities and the SDGs, which is the focus always of European and worldwide policies today. How do we do this? So we make use also of methodologies and learnings that we got in Panoramed, which is the former, the same project in the former period in Euro-Med. And we worked in two strategic projects, Blue Biomed and BBLUE, and we tested then some tools, methodologies and tools that we are going to work on also in these projects, which is the multi-level perspective for transformative innovation. You will be hearing about multi-level perspective, which is, it has two meanings. Sometimes it means national, regional, local, which is multi-level. In this case, you will learn, and we have discussed this yesterday, it is another meaning, multi-level perspective for transformative innovation. We worked also on another model, which is two loops model. It's called like this, these transformative innovation policy labs, which will be implemented in the project. And systems mapping. These are very powerful tools and methodologies that help understand projects, challenges, in another perspective, so that they help us to, so we intend, we want, we are trying, we are experimenting also. And we intend that these methodologies help us to go towards to be aligned towards the SDGs and the MED challenges. And in the project, in Dialogue for Innovation, how we will be doing this? Through innovation camps, as this innovation camp. And today we will be testing one of the methodologies, the multi-level perspective for transformative innovation. As we have been saying, we will be doing this through the implementation of transformative innovation policy labs in some local areas in MED, through online training, workshops, methodological guidelines, and MOOCs, these massive open online courses through the Interreg Euro-Med Academy. And this is what we did in the former Panoramed project. And yes, I here present our MOOC, just for you to have a look at it if you want. So very quickly you can have a flavor of with these methodologies, multi-level perspective, these transformative innovation policy labs, and it is so the work it is reflected there is the testing with the two strategic projects and all what we learned there. What is useful, what is not so useful, and what is this for? And and this is one of the sorry, yeah. You will see there in the MOOC, if you go there, and if not, this is what we learned. We learned how useful the multi-level perspective it is. So I will explain a little bit more about the multi-level perspective now, because it is what we are going to work in the afternoon. But there are other models. The two loops model helps us understanding how to move from a system, the system we've got today, to a system we may figure out for the future. How is this process? So it is not linear, it is not straightforward, and how this can happen. We can learn also about these transformative innovation policy labs. What is this about? How to configure a transformative innovation lab and how to work with it. And we can learn also about systems mapping, what Fernando was referring to, which is a very useful tool to analyze complex challenges and to focus on the relationships between policies, between stakeholders, between issues, very different issues. And you can see here some examples of, well, this is one concrete example of a system mapping that was done during the former period. I will focus now in the multi-level perspective, which is what we are working this afternoon on. And this is useful for all complex challenges, and also for the depopulation challenge in rural areas. And we can start maybe here. understanding what a system is. This is called a technical system. A system is, and Fernando has been mentioning a lot of points of this system. It's made of technology, science. A system is made of culture. Why people want to be in rural areas, as you asked why people would be, maybe that they don't want to be there. In fact, if they have left, it's because they don't want to be there for some reasons. And why? And there are policies, but not policies, many policies that interfere in the way people is living in rural areas. We are talking about agriculture policy, we are talking about health policy, education policy, transport policy. We are talking about also human capital. Is people in rural areas able to perform some activities, yes or no? We don't know. All this is the system. And when we talk about systems, and when we talk about system transforming a system, it is because it's very difficult. A system per se, per definition, is something very stable. It is very difficult to change it. This said, it is difficult to change it, but this said, systems are changing all the time. And the systems are changing because of two tendencies. And this is what we have to understand. Two sort of drivers, yeah? We've got here in the pink arrows are what we call the landscape. These are global tendencies that are affecting our system, regardless what the system is about. Global trends are, for instance, aging of the population. Because of our health system, because of our health science, we are able to live longer. And this is in all the world like this. And this is affecting, in this very case, this is affecting rural areas. Another tendency, global tendency, is digitalization. It's affecting digitalization in the same way rural or urban areas. We know there isn't, but how? Another global tendency can be climate change. How is climate change affecting rural areas or urban areas in different changes? So that is, and all these tendencies, global tendencies, are affecting or putting pressures and tensions on our system. And on the other hand, we've got here these, we call emergent alternatives. These small arrows that are affecting also our system. These arrows are small initiatives in local areas that are, for instance, we are installing some small renewable energy facilities. Or maybe they are heading towards ecological agriculture. Or maybe in one local area, and relating, of course, the population challenge in rural areas, in one area there's an association of women, and they are claiming for some rights, and they are, because of they have been able to achieve this right, they are staying in the rural areas. So these arrows can be or cannot be aligned towards somewhere. I mean, these arrows can be heading towards, we don't know. The very thing here is, and this is the first starting point, is this shared vision of the future. Do we know where we want to go? And this is your question. Yeah, are we sure that we want people to stay in rural areas, and why? And what is our future? What is our vision? And it is not the vision of policymakers, because you can't have a vision. And indeed, the European Commission maybe had a vision, but if the rural areas or the local areas did not share this vision, nothing happened. As you said, in some regions in Spain, they had a vision. In other regions, they had another vision, and maybe they are not aligned with this kind of fighting against the population. In some regions, the population is still happening, and others not. So this is the very first thing. Where do we want to go? And what is we? Is this policymakers? If you are alone, take a decision as a policymaker from a systemic approach, you will for sure fail. So you need, in this case, and in this case, above all cases, you need to take into account the wishes and the needs and the aspirations of local people, and also how they came to these aspirations and wishes. And also not only civil society and citizens, but also local companies, local policymakers, local geographic conditions, everything. And this is the way, this multi-level perspective, which has nothing to do with this national, regional, local perspective. This is another thing, and this is what we are working, going to work this afternoon, trying to identify what we want, how do we get a shared vision of the future, and then if we have a clear direction, then as policymakers, we will be able to head all these small arrows towards this issue. This is the idea, and this is what we are going to work this afternoon. And Tatiana wanted to add something. Thank you.
Here.
Thank you. So, the idea is, because I think you were yesterday, but for the ones who were yesterday, no? At the end, we are going to test some methods. So we are, in this project, are very different from other projects because we are mostly policymakers dealing with challenges at regional, local level, and thinking that we have great challenges, but the policies are not working how we expect. So we are not providing the results, and the problems are there even if we are trying to do so many things and we have so many technological solutions. Then we need different kinds of tools to define different kinds of policies. And we have learned is that we need not just, we need to understand well the challenges, to redefine the questions, to ask the right questions. And for asking the right questions, we need different kinds of tools. And this is one tool that it's helping us when we are going to local areas and work with the local people to trying to understand the challenges that are affecting them. Because you cannot you cannot work against global trends. You need to work with global trends, as we said yesterday. And then you need to empower the good things that are in every territory. And then maybe, as we say, is to have less people and to have more different kinds of activities, or in other places it can be something different. And then how can we work from national level, from regional level, at this local level? Yeah? It's very difficult because we are regional. In our case, we are a region with 7 million people. It's very difficult to have to go to all the local level and to work. So we need to empower and to create new kinds of collaboration also with universities, with the people, with different kinds of tools that allow us to work in a different way together, to understand the challenge in a different way. So what we are going to do this afternoon is to test one of these tools as if we were the people in a rural area, but it's not the objective to solve the problem of the population of rural areas, because maybe this is not the problem, because it's not the challenge. The challenge is how we can guarantee well-being in rural areas. And to ask and to test, because it's the first time we test these kind of tools in such with different people from different countries, to test if this is useful or is not useful, or if we could improve something or not, and if this is helpful or not, but not thinking only on this problem here to try to solve the solution for this challenge, but to think of if this kind of tools and this kind of questions and this kind of exercise are useful to address the challenge that we have in our homes, with our regions, that is more or less the important thing, because it's not that we are trying to take from here a solution for this challenge, but to test the
this
tools.
is an example. This is an example, and you may have, and you have many other complex challenges to deal with. So, Anton, this is the first.
Yeah, we have just a few more minutes. I was just wondering if there was another question or no. Okay, I didn't see. Thank you very much, Alvera, for this. Yeah, I don't need slides. But we are slowly approaching lunch, so our motivation is to finish quickly. But we have one thing to do before the afternoon, and we thought we would form the groups now. We want to form 3 groups. With each group, there will be one colleague from the Generalitat de Catalunya who will help you, and of course, me and Tatiana will also go around the groups. And the idea is to test the tool. We have printed for each of the groups like a thing, the tool itself, so you have it on your tables. We can use the tent. If you have seen this strange tent in the lobby, they gave it to us, so we have very nice tables there. We can have coffee and while working, so each group will receive one of those. And what we prepared, can you take one? Thank you. What we prepared is for the different levels, levels that Elvira just explained, like the landscape, the current regime, and the emerging projects. We have designed these cards. They're all the same color, so we've thought about the problem of the population and thought of what could be some of the issue, what could be some of the elements in this system. The challenge for you as a group will be together to look through the cards, and there is like the title of the card, and on the back there is a bit of explanation. What do we mean by that? Because sometimes you cannot know what do you mean. Like, for example, digitalization and deployment of ICT infrastructures, and there is a bit of explanation for you to discuss and think, does it belong to the landscape? Is it like a global trend? Or maybe it's something that's emerging, what's written in the card. So we a bit play with that. And we have empty cards also somewhere. I think in each, yeah. So in case there's something that we didn't think of, you can write it and put another card. So that's how it's going to work, but our colleagues will explain it. So we can, let's make the 3 groups now. Not many people. Who thought? Or maybe we form the groups after lunch. That's the better one, huh? Yeah, because we don't know how many people will come after lunch, but we really want you to come. So that's why we showed you and it's not, I mean, it's work for you, but it's playing with the cards, seeing if the two, like Tatiana said, like we want to see if that tooth makes sense. Imagine that we're doing it with our stakeholders or with the government colleagues, on a certain issue, and for us it's really important to get the feedback, but we also want you to get the tool, because you can download it, it's for free, all the visuals and stuff, so maybe you can have something in your toolbox as well. So I think this couple of hours in the afternoon after lunch will be helpful for everyone in this sense. So that's our invitation, and it's a bit of like playing with the cards and discussing, is this here or this is there? And then we'll come back to the bigger group and discuss together with on here on the board. So that's the structure for the afternoon. So let's meet then. Tatiana, do you suggest we meet here at 3? We form the groups with the number of people and we decide how to work. Yeah, if you can bring some people, that would be great. Unless they are all having beer in the center of Sarajevo, but let's see that. Yeah, it's very practical. So if people around you wondering, yeah, thank you. No, we are finishing. Thank you. Thank you very much for the attention. We have 10 minutes before the lunch, so you maybe take them to walk to the lunch. And I didn't miss anything important at this point. Yes, we meet at 3 here. Yeah, and if you bring people, we'll be very grateful. We can buy you some baklava. Yeah, maybe if we can buy presents during lunch, that would be the incentive. So put the rumor there that it's some surprise. Yes, thank you, and have a good lunch, have a rest, and see you in a while. Yes, so very quickly, just to, because maybe lunch raise your memory a bit. We have the multi-level perspective model, and we are working with 3 levels. That's why we do level. And one of the levels, the landscape, is like the global and national trends. So basically, these are the things that we might not have influence on. I mean, not to but individually, what government, what organization. This is, for example, hint like climate change or something like a population trends that's going for 50 years. We spoke about the kind of things that are there, and even if you like them or you don't like them, it's there. So it's kind of the part of our landscape. Regime, as we said, in Elvira's presentation, it was the dominant system. So when we talk about the rural areas, it's like how things are at the moment, how are they working, and what kind of measures, policies, laws, whatever are there, what kind of incentives
everything that's now, I mean, again, it could be something that we don't like or like. Apparently, when we talk about this issue, so this is the second level, and the niches are the things that are happening in our case in macro areas, and they might be moving into a different direction from the current system, from how current dominant system is working, or in another direction. But these are emerging things in macro areas. For example, initiatives to repopulate or some kind of couch list where somebody said couch initiative and so on. And this is part of the model. And then we also have the shared vision. The future shared vision.
The future we design.
The future we design. So this is because everything goes to to the future we design. And in our exercise now in this workshop that we're going to have, we have the cards. As I said, we have 3 sets of cards. So basically, they're the same. The 3 sets of cards, and they're mixed things that fall here, things that fall here and there, and also things that we desire in the future. So that's and we put them all in one color in order for us to think a little bit what from these cards are belong to the landscape, to the current dominant system, what are niches, what is something that we desire in the future. And as we're quite a small group, we would like to invite you. I don't know if we want to clarify something around the model. We understand the logic of the model, or maybe that's important. Before we go.
That the region is very difficult to change. And then it's from the niche, it's very difficult to change the system. Landscape is disrupting the system, and we say that this disruption is opening windows of opportunity that can make that these different things can have an impact on the
Something
system
from the global
and help us to advance and move toward the design arrangement. So we need to play with the 3, because the global trends, we need to understand how they are affecting the system, opening windows of opportunities, so that we can, for example, digitalization often disrupts many things, but it's also an opportunity to make changes from bottom-up changes using these technologies. So it's how you play with the 3 levels. We are going to be all the time this in mind. At the end, it's how we play with all the levels. We cannot fight against the system, we cannot fight against the landscape. We need to work with the system and with the landscape. This is the change of mindset. It seems easy, but it's so difficult.
Especially and our invitation now is to spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes to look at the cards, and we put 3 sets. So like this part of the group looks at these cards, and the middle is the middle one, just to familiarize yourself and maybe read. They have a title in the front and the description on the back. There's some empty cards as well. So maybe just spend some minutes. You can discuss with the neighbors to clarify something. You don't need to decide which is where, just to know what's there. And then we'll start putting them and discussing. So let's take 5 to 10 minutes.
There are so many. We divide them.
Only in the wrong way. You don't need to decide now which belongs to where. It's just for you, for each one of you to know more or less what is there. Which I mean, because she did the cards. But you don't need to decide anything. Just familiarize yourself with the cards to know what is there.
It's like
When you spend the night, when I listen to your reading, I was thinking like how to explain that. Affect the progress of the challenge. And how we play with them.
Yeah. We select some. Yeah. This group will have yes.
See.
Maybe yes, maybe we don't know. You need the exact definition of initiative. Basically, like an initiative, not always correct.
Don't worry,
They have the
concentrated otherwise.
so for instance, think of
Is what I learned.
the company. They were starting doing different things. They were in the domain of they did something much different. They were niche. They were something different. And with them, maybe the world of the smartphone started.
You already use one.
So there is the new system.
Yes, again.
They are
And then you have to write the explanation because
the rules were the ones that all people
when we have to play the company, place of the region. Because we need to really read the
also the system of smart tourism. It's very specific for yeah. In the middle, right?
So we don't set it there.
Yeah, the shape is all the design future. Then we see if we share it. But which one is the design future? The sugar, the point.
So I shouldn't get
As soon as Santo this morning said, we want you to stay day one before you close the door. Close the door and
Yeah, the four here.
Okay. Did you manage to look at the cards? Or
yeah,
don't allocate them now. We're starting that, but more or less to know what is there. We don't need to use all of them, just to provoke the conversation. So maybe, yeah, maybe we come back to the big group and something that we didn't put in the diagram before, but we're discussing now. Maybe we start from the desired future. Where do we want the rural areas and the issue that we're discussing to be, and which cards, according to you, belong to a desired future? Of course, this is a dialogue, and we might not all agree on the same desired future as yesterday and today was like. Maybe desired future is like we abandon some of the rural areas. Maybe we want to revitalize them. But it's also part of the tool how we which cards do you think belong to this category? Any of them? So, can you say strong cross-sectoral public-private collaboration?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have for the desired future.
I know you are like,
See the dynamic.
But is it not mean to the future?
Let's have this conversation together because I think it will be useful for everyone. Just to
I remember I heard something about
yes, but let's discuss with everyone so everybody hears the argument. Okay, just a second. Yeah. Yes. So, guys, let's discuss. Can we discuss together so everybody hears, because that will be good for us to listen to the different perspectives. So for now, what we have for the desired future is the interconnected rural communities linked with urban actors, ICT infrastructures and digital skills, and strong cross-sectoral public-private collaboration. You said something that what do you think is do you agree with that? Transport and mobility, which is, is it? Yeah, the description is there's a well-maintained road and rail system that ensures efficient transport of goods. So it's a bit of the desired future. Public transport is provided through local on-demand mobility services, organized and co-funded by the rural inhabitants. So that's.
we have green, smart, and circular bioeconomy.
you asked me if we agree with them, but I read the description of ICT and digital skill, and I'm not sure that this is.
So the ICT infrastructure says the majority of ICT infrastructure are concentrated around urban areas.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure this is the future.
Public underinvestment and private sector disinterest result in poorly maintained and obsolete ICT infrastructure. So maybe this is here. Yeah, it's a bit yeah, but that's a good feedback for us how to do the cards. Okay, so for the future, anything else for the future? So place-based approaches is the future. Because policies are territorially sensitive and overcome the fragmented focus in single sector orientation.
Water for everybody.
It will,
It's not the future. Okay, so. Okay, so place-based approaches and startup villages could be niches, that's what we say. Because it's already there. Yeah? It's already there, but it's not less dominant.
I should think.
Yeah.
I don't know how they Oh, this one is for sure. This one for sure is not in the present. I don't read the description, but I'm sure.
Okay, so empowered and functional local governance institution. They are well-functioning, participative, and committed local governance institutions. Where is that?
I'm not easy. You made some to confuse the group. Someone
Okay, let's see the care economy. What do you think about care economy, the other groups?
Because now you can place everywhere. Without placing also the others.
We started doing So people started putting everywhere. But maybe we do that and then we
I don't know.
This is participative governance model.
I think this is
Because somebody says precarious governance.
I think this is it decided?
Or maybe it's in strong levels.
But usually, I'm promoting ICT-driven social innovation.
Because we need to define
And where
our
people are
regime is where we are. So we know where it was.
We decided
Because we was something outside the area.
but not necessarily infrastructure for the landscape.
Actually, it's
But if you read the description,
already not.
Current structure. Not the war, but in the field we are observing, no, in a way. Climate change. Climate change is regime climate change. Okay.
decided because everybody is from we have few ICT cards. So maybe
This is niches.
What about because it seems like again, but you need to knowledge.
they sent you the cards.
Yes, exactly.
But we can they put it here now.
Yes.
But I don't know.
In the landscape.
So transport, infrastructure.
Yeah, not in the train.
There was a discussion about transport infrastructure, if it's landscape or regime. Somebody, I think Isabel asked if it's regime.
But there is not a definite answer.
But you can change that.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, no, I agree it's a regime, but I think it's just that. No, for me it's a regime, it's clearly a regime. I mean, it's the effect of maybe the landscape would be more the way the investment goes.
This is your
You can change that. Cosas que afectan a
This should be really niche, also some countries are niche, some countries are yeah. And from which country are you? Yeah, actually, yes.
If you have some
We need to I think we can decide if we will apply to
Yeah, it's depends. If you look
we are talking about something that we expect. Because we have to have the possibility, the capacity to make this.
Yeah,
this is different.
this is
Yeah,
but this
if
is
you
how
look
we
France,
Yeah.
but it's
so, yeah, the clear with the key word is active.
totally.
But we could only understand if China suggested us.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
but because there's fine. But
Yeah.
in
They will need to be changed.
Actually, in Europe, we already have this. in many other countries.
Yeah, because this one is public-private collaboration. And the description is this makes for the show public-private collaboration, etc., etc.
For us, probably for Bosnia is
this could be the future, but I think the consensus is already there, is that we are not doing it. So this could be part of the regime, because nobody says there is no need for public-private. Have you ever...
Everybody's saying
in all my year of working, nobody says we should not collaborate public-private. We are not doing, but we are saying. But then one is the consensus, so we will agree. I mean, I'm a bit sorry, but it's good.
But this relationship facilitates the mobilization of the general resources to establish processual coordinations.
So the second part is like it is already happening. Because the first part, the consensus, we have already. In the middle. At the end of the regime toward the future. Because the consensus is there. And we need some niche supporting us to make it real.
There is some contribution of public-private collaboration.
In some countries,
but in some countries it works.
Okay, but they are minority.
No, but I can tell you other stories from my country about public-private.
And you cannot
in the gray area. It's the integration.
Because they said it.
Yes.
She says in Bosnia.
I said it. Yeah, so it would be
landscape farming.
I think this is already okay. You can discuss.
We already achieved many of.
I mean, funding opportunities are external opportunities.
Practice. Yeah.
You ask the reality.
Yes,
Sì, sì. Non una pista di sorry.
Actually, already.
We're scared.
The game finished when we played the
I honestly already
you don't know. You didn't have a decided future.
No. Well, I'm thinking let's put most of them and then we read each category and we share.
Yes. Then we need to add something.
Yes, but let's
not for
But we think that all of them, if we think that some of them are not important.
No. What we do are not important.
Or maybe we select.
Maybe we start reading the groups and discussing.
Yeah.
But let's see if there's a few more. Participative governance. This was discussed also.
Yes, with Maria we decided for sure it is
In the future.
It's very fast. It's a very inclusive, connected Western government, very fast. But now everything has happened.
Or we go. You don't need to push it if you don't think it's super important.
You're representing regime because you're changing now.
Yeah, you can see it.
You see, prototype.
They should be the niches changing the future, but the niches should be strong.
Then we finish the game, you know, the community wants this, and regime comes in, listen,
Okay, so maybe we read the cards in the different places, and then we see which ones maybe not clear, and that helps us. So in the desired future we have, it seems, at least by these cards, for this exercise, we kind of want to keep the rural areas there. I mean, that could be, if you do the two, when you talked about the desired future, we could do something else and we discussed. But what we have at the moment is empowered and functioning local governance, participatory governance model, proactive climate change policies, access to public services. The cultural heritage is there because I think it's more about, actually some of the groups put the cultural heritage in the niche because it's preserving it through narratives or something like that, but depending, this could be, I think there's a bit of discussion, depending on the country.
Could be already there, analysis there.
Yeah, even with the participatory government,
this depends from which country you're looking.
Interconnected rural communities linked with urban actors, promotion of high-speed-driven innovation, and green, smart, and circular bioeconomy. Transport and mobility is here because the description is about very well connected, on demand, funded by citizens, and so on. And strong cross-sector public-private collaboration. There was discussion because Alessandro said how it is written, it's a bit like everybody is agreeing with that, so maybe it's a regime, but is it happening in practice? So that could be,
No, so I got distracted.
No, I was talking about.
I realized I talked too much.
He was like,
no, but
it's the one I moved, the one on governance. But Maria told me that is
So then, if we say this is the desired future, the landscape, so the big things that are happening are growth-oriented policies. So, is it? Did you have it somewhere?
I saw that.
It's in the So maybe let's read it. Let's read it. Depopulation is understood as a simple linear process associated exclusively with economic decline. The predominance of growth paradigms and linear approach mindsets limit policymakers to growth-oriented policy solutions, which in both cases do not succeed.
We put it as a regime.
Yeah, but the title is, I understand why people put it, because it could be like the kind of the landscape. No, it's not the landscape. It's a regime. It's a decision to.
it's a policy.
Okay, so that's the digitalization and deployment of ICT infrastructures.
The other one is university.
It's more like the potential here. Maybe it's
the one that we were discussing before, the policies growth oriented. This is not a question of specific policies. We are still in this kind of society that is changing a bit with this sustainability.
And the World Bank.
Yeah, so we are still thinking from this competitiveness approach. We are trying to move through things in a different sense.
It's between the landscape and because it's something that we cannot change super quickly because it's such a
Probably, I don't know, but I see maybe the difference is also that the landscape is more external.
Yes.
So if we see growth-oriented policy, like the one you say now, World Bank, the international institution, EU policy making, they make
rural areas cannot.
They make these policies growth-oriented. Is external to the rural areas because the decisions are taken as well. If we read it as a matter of the fact in rural areas, it stays in the regime. The description is sometimes thinking that probably is true, that in this case, if it was conceived more as the external policy is more oriented, you know as the
landscape. But as policy, you can decide to go for participating policy or for policy, but you have this landscape that is.
For example, in the I've forgotten, I don't see.
It's both.
I don't know. I think in the landscape, yes, in the landscape there is one that is multi whatever funding, no?
Yeah.
Okay, that's for example, in this case it was easier, I think, in the landscape, because it's a EU funding opportunities for multi-fund approach. No, so I don't know, I suggested in the landscape because it is clear these are EU funding opportunities. So external.
It's the normal thing, or it could be also a niche because it's. Well, I don't know. It depends.
Could be.
Yes,
I don't
something
know.
new.
I saw niche like more something more from the ground and more small. Yeah. But the description is very general, but was just to say that in this case it was.
If we take the look from the local areas, growth policies are like
because
for us it's.
Which you cannot decide.
But this kind of exercise to say that it's difficult. It depends from the perspective you are looking at. Things are moving, and if you are a local area, then things from here maybe are landscapes and not regimes, because it depends if you are.
Yes.
And I think this is also very important when you are defining the way you are going to approach this thing. We have this different approximation if you are a local government or a regional government, but also or a national, but also you are going to consider these cuts in the different places depending of the type of evolution that you have in the mountain region. As we have seen with one of the cards that one prefers to be in the EUSAIR, another one prefers to be in the niches. So I think that the complexity of the system is there. There are different approaches depending on many different factors. That's why also this approach is complex.
It was also like the game the other day, no? With the triangle.
Yeah.
People stay quiet, but the old people are moving. It's like, and depending on where you are putting yourself, you are local policymaker or you are company, so your perspective of how things are connected. But some things are connected with each other. So it's very difficult to start things bottom up or at local level if you are playing together with some things of the landscape under the regime, because from here it's impossible to do anything by yourself. You need to connect with other actors that maybe are at the other level, and that's why it makes sense that we work at Mediterranean level, because it's the way you connect the local things that are landscape, the Mediterranean policies that can help the landscape to change, creating multi-funding opportunities, for example, or creating new policies that are not so growth-oriented.
But the policies within the more regimes, I mean, or that's it,
It depends on how you look at the problem. These things are going to change the. So
on the programs that are more
the programs that depend on you are regime. If you are national government and you're having policies, the regime you can change that. You will have opposition, but you can change your policies. But there are some other things that the agriculture policy, you cannot change it for US landscape because it's the European Union. And maybe you can help to change that, but you cannot work against the European policy. But you can understand that you have the European policy and that at your level you can make some changes in order to help them to get the opportunities that are there. So it's how you play with the three levels.
You can change the regime of the depth then to the regime.
It's very difficult to change, but you can reorient.
Yeah, I think that it's a question of not only working with the regime, but within the regime.
Yes. Or regime, you are part of the regime because you are policy maker.
Do you think you need niches if you wanna, I would say, to change the regime? But you need. I'm thinking how they are connected, regimes and niches. Do you need as a regime? Do you need the niches perhaps to come up? Yeah. I guess niches help you to change the system.
But they are already there. You just
They
start
are
from
there.
scratch.
So, if you want any opportunities, maybe there are some farmers working with forestry bioeconomy. Maybe forests now are not used, but they can create wellness or good opportunities for the people living in the territory. And maybe there are some actors at the local level that are working with ways of managing the forest that have positive impacts for the bioeconomy and so on. Then you need always to, when you are at the level of government, you need to see and understand what is happening at the local level. Because here the energy helping you to change things. From the government, it's very difficult to change.
You can also promote it, and it is about also experiencing and experimenting, and you can promote pilot projects. And it is being promoted actually. It's not bioeconomy projects, and it is being subsidized, and nobody knows exactly. Or for instance, with the hydrogen or something, we don't know exactly where it will lead, but it has been supported, and we have to learn. We don't know exactly what will be the way to go to this higher future. We don't even know. In many cases,
Yeah, you can enter, of course.
Do you think that Interreg, for example, Interreg program, there's a check here.
Interreg program?
It is promoting.
It's a mean.
It's not. Yeah.
Should be a means to promote niches. Interreg should be.
Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah, to promote niches, and help you change or influence the landscape, or
Because to change the
to change the regime. Yeah.
Because at the end, you need to say, you have, for example, farming bioeconomy, but the farmers by themselves cannot do that. They need researchers trying to understand what use can have these bioproducts and now maybe they are waste, but maybe they can have new possibilities in the health industry or no. Then it's not that, it's how you get connection. So you need to say, okay, we have these possibilities here, how we, from government, but from researchers, from companies, how to create that this growth can change. You want to move towards this direction.
And this will become the new regime. In 10 years, people will do the same and say, "Oh, this doesn't work for us."
Some of these niches could become. I mean, there will be a sort of natural selection, and some of them can become probably the new regime.
And some niches go against the desired.
Exactly.
I mean, there are niches like, I don't know, people.
That I would say that maybe we should think about that there are also niches that are not only positive, because there are also experimentation that goes in that are not necessarily.
The way of thinking is, we know
Which
what
are
we
the
want
niches
to go.
that help us?
We know where we want to go. And then when we have a clear idea, we need to understand how the global trends can help us or not moving into that direction, because of course it's more against so fail. But then we need to look at our territory and to see on what can we build, because it's not that you have everything and you can do whatever you want. You need to work with what you have
And
now.
this means researching goals, like
You
you
need
need
to
to research
research
and
and
make an oriented selection of the niches that for us are functioning.
Yes.
Political dimensions. We all.
Can you repeat?
Yes, when we were doing this exercise, we all put the notion of the economic coming from the government. And then here we have all the political dimension. And somehow I think it's the difficulties to integrate these two dimensions, to make them be integrated in the political dimension using this desired future, using the current regime, which is sometimes, for example, growth-oriented policy. Doesn't work for this, so we don't know how. Maybe you can switch directly, from this initiative to desired future with political tools that will influence the vision social, sustainable growth oriented policy. So it should be somehow, come back to
at the end.
No, but it's really interesting question, like how do you connect these niches like this regional? But there's one of the cards, for instance, that talks about public public shared agendas, no? How you collaborate.
Maybe it's a meme. Yeah.
Exactly, no? It's the tool, maybe it can work as a tool or a neighbor, no, facilitator to as well approach this.
It's very practical, more conceptual things. This is the things in the middle, which is not so clear.
Only with niches you don't achieve anything.
Exactly.
Because niches, they are everywhere. There are lots of EU projects that they are living everywhere. The thing is how you work from the regime.
From this.
Work with the niche to open the current system and to see, hey, we are promoting that, but this is a better opportunity for our territory. And why don't we create a space where we can discuss these things and see if it's a better option for us, given that the current policies. It's how you create that dialogue to open the system. Because it's the system that has to adopt. From this is very difficult. You provide alternatives, you provide narratives, you provide examples, but you need to open the regime.
And something about the future also, it's like, it's a bit different from a very concrete vision. We don't say very concrete, it's more like, there is one author that talks about vectors, if you remember from mathematics, it's like the direction to go. It's not exactly, that year we'll have exactly this number of people. It's not a plan, it's more that a bit conceptual. And it's okay because most probably we won't get exactly there, but it's the direction that we want to be. So it's because the change, the landscape will change and things will change. But it's a good thing to have a direction. But recently, I don't know if that's part of this model, but recently a lot of talk is being done not to have this very clear, concrete visions because they never happen. They never happen because of the constant change. But at least you need some kind of, otherwise, where are you going? So it's a balance between being a bit vague, but also have a direction. Because otherwise, people get disappointed how many visions didn't happen. You can count all kinds of visions that didn't happen with numbers and so on because of me.
And you see that here there are many participative governance model.
It's not values. It's almost like values. Yeah, what do we value? But it's a conversation.
Share things.
But we had also the SDGs.
Yeah,
and this is really
everything you say.
So when you talk about, we were talking about the population of rural areas, and we heard that why should we keep people in rural areas? Okay, this is position, and the position is no, we should promote people living in rural areas. Why? Well, this can be a way to answer. So do we need, for the sake of gender equality, for the sake of climate change, for the sake of what we have already agreed upon that are our objectives, for this sake, do we need people in rural areas or not? If we don't, then maybe we are talking about something wrong. But I think my opinion is for the sake of climate change, we need people, for instance, or for the sake of food security, we need people growing food. Do we need for these people in rural areas? I would say yes. So if it is yes, then we are we should need for people staying in rural areas, and then we can or not. Maybe if machines can do the
I was just joking with myself in my mind, saying that now that we have urban farms, aquaponics, and cultivated cells, maybe we don't need any more people staying in rural areas for food, because we also have this kind of niches arriving.
But it's also regional. Maybe one region decides they want to keep.
But these are alternative way. We don't know how we will go there. The alternative
You
way.
need to ask the people living in
Exactly,
rural
that's what I'm
areas.
saying.
Yeah.
I think people need to have
But
a
people
choice.
Yes.
Have a real choice.
Yeah, but
also change.
yeah, they can also
Because
change.
in exercise you don't do it in general, but you work on that in the territory with the local people, and then they can also ask the government what they need, but not just I need that, I need that. No, we as rural areas, rural territories, we have these problems, we need that, and we have these possibilities, and we need that researchers come here and work with us in order to we need funds in order to have, it's to create new.
I think this is a big conversation. To get to the
Yeah.
future, it's almost like a separate thing that you do within this model, which will get you after that would how you approach.
Who do you think then should have, I'm thinking like this role among the dialogue? I mean, we're speaking of the dialogue with the national. For example, we have these regional agencies, so I'm thinking I noticed to establish this kind of a dialogue. So, because you have a national level and you have the farmers, sometimes not organized, sometimes not even connected. I guess it's in between, some regional.
Yeah, but probably, for example, apart from the scale you do, now you say we have regional agencies. The idea is how regional agencies design their plan. No? So if they design the plan, because now they, you always have done incentives to people and I don't know, some public investment, etc. Okay. But maybe when you design the plan of the regional agency, you could use this model. I guess that in real life, this kind of exercise should be done with real people.
We are real people.
We are pretending because this is the future, as we say. The future of design should be the future of living in that community, not the future of myself as advocating local development. I would like to be, and then maybe the people think they say, why don't you go? So I mean, but we are of course we are doing to have some capacity, but I guess in reality, for example, if you are a regional agency, when you make the plan with the people you have in your constituency, you should do this kind of exercises, starting to talk with them, which is the desired future maybe they want, or you want together, the community want. And then they decide also the kind of policy, and then they look maybe with the niches already happening in the region that they can support.
What works better is to work on a concrete challenge. It's not to think, okay, what kind of future we want. But for example, in the case we used that in a territory that was very intensive in livestock production, and then there were 8 measures that had this huge problem because of ammonia and lost biodiversity, etc. problem. Then they started, how can we solve that? And they saw that in Denmark and Netherlands, they are getting money for that. And then they say, okay, maybe we can do this also. Then what should we do? We want to move to a circular bioeconomy because this can be an opportunity for them. Okay, then we have 2 ways to do that. We can allow that big companies come and buy our resources and sell us the products, or we can be the main actors of this change, and then with the help of researchers and we need some policy support, we can develop new ways of using and creating value from these resources that we have in the territory, and that they are not causing problems, but they can be an opportunity. How can we do that? Then you need to help them as regional agency to say, okay, let's count how many resources you have. Let's analyze what can we do with the resources. And you need logistics. If you don't work together, it's not possible to go to each farm to get the waste and then you start with, if you want to go there, that we are here, we have all these kind of problems, but we want to go there. And then how you start to work with them, okay, how we can learn to move from here to there.
Yes.
Working in business is not enough.
Yes. But are the regional authorities, are they keep their, I'm thinking because from the national point of view, you can have different requests, demands, different, like this region want this want this. So I'm just thinking on the national level.
They are asking for money.
Yes.
We are a region, we have these problems, we are finding ways to address that. We see these opportunities, there are regional funds that are here. How we can help them to organize themselves to move in the direction and to address and in general it's not working this kind of thing. For me, I'm skeptical. When you're here, you can say many things that don't fit, but when you have real common challenges and you have different actors in the territory that have these common challenges, then it's important that they, okay, what are the alternatives? Because should we close our farms, or there are other options for us? Which are these options? And the regional agencies should help them to decide. There are many options. It's not about getting money to solve the problem. It's about
think just sorry, I think this macro regional level, this macro regional strategy that was in 1 month. I don't know if you were listening in Brussels and so on. There was very much expressed from the new region, the new PS, these value chains, but the importance of this regional approach actually, and not only cooperating on this, national level, but on the regional, like Baden-Württemberg in Germany and so on. So in the sense that they have also their own funds, not necessarily Interreg, yeah, but
no, because the funds, because the funds come after.
yeah, later. Yeah, but I mean, let's say to the regions to cooperate, not only perhaps I'm thinking not only the countries, yeah, because sometimes it's quite difficult, let's say, to bring 2-3 countries together, but perhaps have some regions.
Yeah, but the
like 3, 4,
cooperation
5.
is objective or is a mean to achieve something.
Yeah, this is problems.
It's a mean to achieve something.
Yeah, to solve the problem.
If you look at that, territory people cooperation is not they cooperate to get the money. It's not.
No, to solve the problem.
If you see that you have this challenge of waste and there are many regions having these challenges and some of them found solutions, then maybe you have interest in working with them. And if funds are available to exchange experiences and to hire some experts working there that can come to your region and work on that, then you can make work cooperation for what the European Commission says this place-based innovation. At the end, the important thing is that the people in the territory are the main actors because there are problems that you have to solve. And then how you can use the other instruments to how these actors can see the different possibilities and can help them possibilities to define their own way. But understanding the landscape, if they understand the landscape, maybe there are conditions that is not sustainable.
Because I think this is the point of macro regions. I mean, yeah, to bring together this kind of areas with the plumbing problem. So let's say to come to bring common challenges or areas, regions.
You have the challenges for the whole region, and then you work with the stakeholders have the same role in many areas. You understand how they're solving them, and you help them to benefit from each other and to move forward. But at the end, things are happening at the local level.
Very interesting conversation about. I'm not agree with you in the vision. I think that vision.
No, it was just my opinion.
Oh, yeah,
I don't say it's the right way.
Yeah. I think that we can call it anyway. The desired future, the northern star, all of these things. But the thing is that we have some goals there, and of course, if it is going to be vague, that is going to have really clear indications on which should be the approach that we are going. For instance, in the case of this example we have mentioned of of course, there are a very clear effort of these people living there in solving the problem. That it's a huge problem for them, and they have learned that there are other things, other experiences in other parts of Europe that learning from them they can have a benefit, a greater benefit, and solve the problem. And then, if they have not the support of the regional government that has a goal, that has identified that there is a need of going in that direction, and that the activity that these people represented is going in that direction, if you, as a government, does not support this idea, most probably this very good initiative is going to fail.
No, but I completely agree.
Yeah, no, but I take your, I take your, it was not a question to you, but I thought that it was a good moment to introduce this division as a trigger for many things. Of course, this is the combination of the top-down and bottom-up. One of the real failures of this specialization strategies was this very insistent, constant mantra of bottom-up, bottom-up, bottom-up. And the bottom-up is very good because you are giving the opinion, you are giving the floor for those that are living there. You are allowing this place-based approach. But if you have not the support of the other really important part that the decision makers represent, you are going to lead to out. For instance, in the case that there is an important project that the European Commission is supporting now, is the smart smart villages project. And this is also related with this intention of revitalizing. So there were 21 villages in the 2022 period, I think. There were 21 villages that were participating in an effort that you could okay, commission support. And then there were small villages, really small villages, that tried to implement new modes, new technological experiences, something different to cover a bit the capacity of the territories. The ideas these local municipalities put in place were really good. But what happened? That the regional government has no interest in this activity, no interest. So the only final, the most important final result of that was frustration, because there was no connection of that. So I was thinking on that when talking about the niches and the desired future. When talking about place-based policies, or talking about governance, or talking about these elements that we want to have in the future, because we consider that are relevant for the achievement of the goals that we have, we need also to see that there is niches for this kind of approaches. There are niches that are going to be part of the future, and then if you identify these niches, you have to support them a lot, because they are going to be able to modify the system in which you are working. So I think that in terms of governance, because I tend not looking at the pictures and the cards I see, that is only my opinion, but I tend to think that when we are talking about niches, we are talking about bioeconomy. But we are talking about
practices.
Yes.
New ways of selling the products of the lands to the consumer.
No, and even in terms of governance, we as an administration, we are open to new niches.
Yeah. No, what you say is totally true, because at the end is how you recognize these niches, because from the government, if you create new policies without looking at these alternatives that you need to change the system, at the end the usual suspects are going to get all the funds to do what they were doing. Because there are, for example, many funds, EU funds, are working for supporting the research and innovation at university institutions that are paid in national countries. And in the Mediterranean, it's always the case. They don't get money from the government, so they go to the European funds to support and to finance it themselves. But then the impact of these projects is not, and then there is a role of governments and of the European Union to provide directionality, but then to say, okay, if this directionality, how we create that these smart villages are a pilot in order, if it's working, the government is going to adopt this policy to do something else. If you don't do this connection, then nothing happens. You have many projects everywhere, many niches, but they are not, because niches is not projects. It's like something more.
The problem is that
they have to support the government, that it's not like a project institution or a project and this is an issue.
Yes.
You need, there is a practice, and there are some actors working in some things that can work in a different way.
I think it's a macro-regional concept, and then Interreg projects and so on.
Yeah, you have Interreg projects.
Yes.
You have this challenge in the Mediterranean, all the regions have. The key issue is when you have the central regional projects, but you need to get involved the governments in order that they understand that there is solutions for their growth, and that they have to commit to use the results. But if they don't have this kind of systemic approaches, it's never going to happen. So at the end, it's about changing perspectives in public administrations, that their role is to facilitate. If they really want to work for these institutions, they have to work for that objectives. But if they want to work for institutions and they want to move in this direction, they need to understand global challenges, they need to work with niches, and they need to nourish these niches and to help them grow. And if they want to move in this direction, to the low experiment, no, it's not about being an activist against the system. We have decided we want to move toward SDGs, then how can we help the system move in that direction?
Yeah, but because enabler of the niches to become the new regime. So they have an internal contract, and we know very well people inside the government because you have to go in a way against yourself. In a way, you have to change yourself. Right? And the way it is, because I know that, but he said the European Commission supported a pilot initiative to find these smart villages. Then the policies did not recognize. They introduced now, I think, in the rural development policies. Okay, so the policy was the one promoting the scouting. Then it was not strong enough. Maybe the evidence was not enough because we got to change structure in the policy. But it's the same because also the policy was the one supporting and promoting this climate. So it is an internal because maybe this concept is more in the other world, in the Toulouse model, because so to move these things, some of them are moving spontaneously. No? Thanks to global changes, to think some of these niches are broadening spontaneously, let's say, no? Some others need support. Now I think we are concentrating on the one that needs support. So I think there somewhere you need some enablers, or I don't know, supporters, whatever, that can recognize the good niches in a way. No, recognize the niches in a way, the one that deserves support, because how do we define? And then in a way support them indeed to get larger, to get diffused, and not because this is something that is there if we think that it's not happening spontaneously.
But nothing is happening spontaneously. At the end, everything is focused. For example, energy policies.
Yeah.
You have many issues because all these alternative and renewable energies, but at the same time in the regime you have strong actors, electrical companies, that have strong incentives or to capture all the, because the renewable energies was to generate a total completely change in the system producing electricity. But you have these strong actors that capture these niches and indeed that they transform the system. So it's like smart, much more complex. Now you have all these technologies, the smart grids that can allow the democratization of the electrical system, but at the same time you have governments captured by the strong actors that are electrical companies. That first they try to that it takes slowly this process of renewable energies, and when they see that it's inevitable, they start building all the companies and changing regulations so that they can dominate also the renewable energy, because at the end they are the ones producing it. So this is the thing that you need to understand. At the end, it depends on each country, but at least to become aware that the system works like that. And if you want to generate alternatives, it's not that they are spontaneously, you need to nourish them, you need to empower them, to open new ways of the system. And there will be contradictions, but then you can say, okay, these technologies allow that, but there are these actors that are fighting against that, fighting against the interests of the minority. But if you put that and you say that, then it's,
And in the other model, if you know the model, when the old regime, old system is dying, they say, it's a bit different language there, but they say when it's dying, there's a lot of, like, it is a big crisis for people. The whole system is changing, it's a lot of pain. Even they talk about hospice of the old thing, because also, it means a lot of change for many people.
But often this transition to that happens also for regulatory policies. Like now the issue is that when the incumbents are not strong enough to impede this, or maybe the niches are strong enough that they can allow to foresee that you have an alternative. So that time is also the incentive of energy. They changed it when it was in a way possible to foresee that we can be without fossil fuels.
But we could have other options and other pathways if these people would fighting with these new models would have much more power, or the European Commission would have changed. So the thing is that this is what happens. There are global trends, the regimes are very stable, and the stronger actors are the ones. And then there are niches, and they are always. It's not too much empty.
Do you think there is enough, I'm thinking, dialogue among the policy levels and these issues? I'm thinking, for example, smart specialization strategy, our guys in our ministry, I have like 6-7 people, they're working with SRIPs, so associations, and they go to the events, they meet with companies, for example. There, I think, also it is operation. So I'm thinking that perhaps some other ministries, how much are they actually involved in the, monitoring of the niches, working with the niches? I mean, I'm just thinking, is this, can we say this is, can be also challenging, or are you satisfied with the countries? You know what I mean?
This is not mainstream. This is
how is the institutional relating? Disconnection. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's disconnected. It's completely disconnected. But the thing is, if you really want to move towards SDGs, because the thing is, we are doing so many things. We are investing so much money in circular economy, in water development, in whatever. But you look at the indicators, and it's getting everything worse and worse and worse. And we need to understand why this is happening. What do we want to do as society, do something against that? If yes, we are part of the system works with global trends, it's a system with many actors that have their own routines, researchers are working to publish papers, to make patents, it's like it's working, the system. Then we are having the results that we are having. If we want to change that, we need to think differently. We need to make alliances with the people trying to develop new ways of being more sustainable, that are more aligned with the global trends. Of course, we need people in rural areas, they need to have a good quality of life because they need to take care of the landscape. We need landscapes that are functional and they create biodiversity and they provide water and then how it's a different way of thinking if we want to move towards the design future. But it's not a solution, it's just like to change their mindset in order to see the problems that everything is connected. That we want to fight against the population, it's not enough to provide incentives so that people come to their areas and provide them a free house.
There's questions. I don't know if we need to go just, maybe to give you a brief also. There's any questions before, I mean, we have a bit of time. We need to, in the end, we wanted to ask you a bit for the tool and feedback, but any questions?
We prepared like NCRs, but have you like thought of like
define as because well, I'm taking this from, I think it's called the geography of discontent or something like this, that talks about territories that have been not experimenting with government in the last years, and how this discontent now is being expressed in the ballots, and how it can lead to populism. So I'm also thinking how this trend can affect how we design the future. I don't have any person around me, but I see on Twitter that there are some people against the 2030 agenda. At the end, this trend that is generated with the regime itself, the instability of the regime, and not paying attention to these trends that are getting to the advantage, and also influence how we define
I think one way to do it without, you can do it just people add stuff, the tool. I mean, we used it for today just to start the conversation.
No, but this is a very important
but that's very
because it's like the denial of climate change or
and you can get more detail.
polarization of society.
But also, like in our countries, all this also connected with that distrust of government in general, because so far and people just don't care. They almost don't care who is the government, what are the policies there. They just live their life. So it's even if you produce some policy, nobody cares. So it's a crazy,
Also like electric cars. I mean, most people, for example, I would say they don't believe in electric cars in the sense that it is pollution or there's a battery issue and so on. So I think it's quite. I mean,
No,
but they don't believe it's the solution.
But they are a part of the solution, but not the solution.
Yeah, but it's some people are enthusiastic and some.
But
this is part of the system. But this is a way in which the system, the current system, is the situation. Because when you think about the defending themselves from the change, when you start to think about why this opposition to the electric car, you can think about these policies that Trump put in place 6 years ago, regarding to minimize the effects of oil and so on, and well, there is no need to change, there is no need to go to
Baixo?
per
la potència.
because older from outside our country is telling us that we are contaminating more or polluting more than others. So it's some parts of the system resisting the change that is.
But the change is always happening.
Yeah, it's always happening. So this is trying to minimize the change or trying to retard the change because the alternative, the renewable energies is affecting the economic balance they have. And the important thing is that how these ideas, this resistance, is finally drive to this populism. Because again, and this again is connected with the talk that we have this morning about this situation in rural areas. That this abandon that they suffer is fueling this position of populism. And again, it's an effect. I think that everything is under this construction of trying to keep the system as it is.
This is also that's very important that we talk about a design future, because if the people that are against this future, they are not invited to the table. So because it's impossible to discuss. So that's why we say, okay, should be aligned with these DJs. You are working for a future that it serves your interest. Sorry, you are not. We invite at the beginning only the people that share, have a common challenge and want to work towards a vision. Because if you want to find consensus from the beginning, so if you want to transform something, it's impossible to find consensus because there are some people that are aiming for the current situation. And this is the first rule, not to look for consensus, to start transforming. And then it's important that in every transition there is conflict. And it's not about avoiding conflict, because then you go to polarization. It's about managing conflict. It's not this or that, maybe only both. And this is, well, the mindset is very difficult that people understand that it's not that or that, it's both. And how can we, when we look at the problems in a systemic way, it's much easier to make compromises. It's not, you have this or you don't have this. That is not. We need to avoid this kind of polarization, because then we will be people in favor of electric cars, people against electric cars. Then maybe we should talk about how we can make possible accessibility. And then we start discussing that. And then we think, but what kind of cities do we want? And then what kind of mobility? And then that necessary or not, or electric car. We need public transport, or we don't have public transport, and maybe that's problem. But we need to rethink the approach.
Yeah, because even the proponents of electric cars, I've worked in Bulgaria, they say it's a solution for everything. Yeah, like, no, that's the other way of it's much more.
But I'm wondering, since I have been joining a bit late, and I jumped in, and we were discussing the ideas in the future, I'm asking myself, do they have a deadline, timeline? Because, for example, for electric cars, in one of the programs we are close to collaborating with colleagues from Norway, and they have been heavily subsidized the electric cars. Now they're basically in a situation where Oslo is armed with electric cars, and they are doing more damage than effectiveness. In terms of the roads that have been built earlier, can be foreseen the electric cars are more heavier than regular ones, so basically they are not renovating the streets. And those are the side effects of the future that might might be foreseen in order to have timeline, because no subsidies, because we are having the mission and the documents, whatever we are developing, they have their timeline. After some point, basically, they are outdated. We need to reshuffle it. We need to reshuffle it. We have different levels. I'm coming from the ministry level. Whenever we are developing anything and coming to the local level, it's first question is from which party are you coming? But regardless what idea or proposal we are doing, because well, you are with them. Okay, we won't work. I'll pass our municipality, our town. So in that regard, having it on regional level is the way how to operate, because we tried on a local level, and that's the disconnect basically.
It's not one level or the other. It's we need all levels.
Yeah, we need all levels,
we need to find the ways of working together. And the role is different from national government.
Indeed.
And the national government has to make decisions and needs to define the vision of the country also. But to define this vision, it needs to understand what people in the territory think and needs to understand the different perspectives of the different people, the different collections, integrating all that. And you need people in the national government. This entrepreneurial discovery process that specialisation are talking about is about that. You need to have people, you are in the regional government or the national government, but you need to work with the local level. Maybe there will be some people specialized in understanding, okay, for the, it's, but you have your obligations to decide political things that only the national government can decide. It's not to ask the people what they want.
Indeed, and how basically you can find a commitment from the people to believe. Yeah, of course now I'm speaking empirically, so because we are the managing authority which publish the call, and throughout the calls basically we are taking some goals and initiatives regardless of Interreg, because we do have mainstream programs, we have other programs, initiatives that we have financed, and the way how we publish the call, how we communicate with the country itself, with the regions, how we continue to implement those projects, making it fully transparent in order to give them, I would say, impression that it was fair and that commitment stayed from the moment they started with implementation. Because everybody knows here the implementation is the most challenging part of the project. And we, as somebody who has been working for a while, taking into account that we do have plenty of newcomers coming in the country. We were speaking on rural areas, they are basically all newcomers, and just make a parallel how newcomers feel when they come in this discussion with somebody who has been dealing with Interreg for years. They are clueless.
But there are different levels, there are different things. So this is not you apply this to everything.
No, of course not.
And this is some exercise to make before you define the code. And once you, we know that the SDF and all these calls with European funds are all the contrary to that. And there are so many things to take into account that it's difficult. But in the government, you need to have, before doing the calls, because then maybe you, as I'm doing this kind of exercises, you are going to change the way you produce these calls. Because our question is, in our case, because I also work with managing authorities and all that, we see that these European regional funds, because of the calls we are doing and because they are responding out the interest of everyone is asking what they want and the government is giving everyone a little bit, and that there is a regional equilibrium and that the big ones get the money they want and that. But at the end, the impact is zero or negative. So it's not helping the system to move into the desired directions. You are happy, you have transparent processes in order to give the money so that no one complains and the money is distributed. But the question would be if this money that you are given is working to this kind of processes. And this is a different question. This is like a different kind of thing. We need to, so our current administration serves many interests. There are bureaucracies, it's very difficult to move, but the world has changed so much and so rapidly, and we need to work with uncertainty, and we need to accept that. It's not to, and maybe we are not orienting our policies the way we should orient them. And it's not something that you can change from one day to another, but you need to work in new spaces in which you have the possibility to make this kind of questions. You are not going to change from one day to the other. My government is not talking like me, so they are doing the usual calls. No, they are doing because it would become, you cannot change from one day to the other, but it's important to open these spaces to have a better understanding. How can you help that these things happen, because at the end, climate change is here, the droughts, the rain is there. So it's disrupting everything. And if you think that what you are doing, because people are complaining because you're giving them money and you're transparent, it's enough. So, but many policymakers, because in my country too, think that is enough. But the world is moving very fast, and we need to understand these kinds of things, and maybe it's different levels. We need everything. So the system is working and producing the current results, but we cannot change it from one day to another. It needs to keep going. But at the same time, we need to find alternatives and different ways of doing things and collaborating with the local levels. We need to find these ways.
I think it's also the point that you mentioned, let's say, for example, with electric cars. I'm thinking, like, if you have, let's say, now approximately sustainability and so on is that, and now the electric cars are the niche, but then we have, for example, Vudik, how they call this, then you can have, I don't know, or let's say hydrogen. And so I guess then if you have a new, let's say, option, then you can have, for example, like hydrogen coming here up, in the sense you can be, I'm thinking on the constant look for the niches in order to reach somehow this desired state. I mean, in the sense also if we bring, let's say, this electric, the people that are, I would say, against, but no, if we see, let's say, the electric cars are perhaps not, this importance to constantly see the niches and then, to improve and then somehow work towards this. Because you don't have, it's not, it can fail.
It is written so it's changeable through the time, basically.
But probably this was Anton saying at the beginning when you said that the vision is not something that you decide precisely, like saying, I want to move to electric mobility.
Yes.
Because which is the final objective? The final objective is more sustainable. If you make a choice, well, sometimes, but you have to make a choice somewhere, because otherwise you always want sustainable mobility and you do nothing. So you have to make, but you need to be.
But it's not the place in the vision, because
exactly as you were saying, maybe now you choose the electric car and you say, and then you see that maybe that one is not the best option because we will never have enough lithium, and I don't know. And then maybe there are other niches, as you say, they will invent teletransport before or later, so there will be alternatives. So that's why the vision, I think, what you mentioned should remain in a way concept broad, no? That you have different alternatives in parallel.
If you look for sustainable mobility, maybe you are going to build many roads with many electrical cars because you want mobility to move.
Exactly.
And then it's maybe accessibility you want.
Yeah, indeed, because electrical car
requires the cities and the objective you said, it affects the policies you
electrical cars are a way to maintain private transport.
But it's important also to say that you have on board
but not in rural areas.
Okay, the beginning you say, but then because they can bring, let's say, the hydrogen.
I'm just checking how is the energy, because we're talking for a long time. And I'm suggesting something very quick before we end, if you bear with us a few more minutes. We have a slider, but I don't think we use it. Can we go in around, and if you don't want to talk, you don't oblige. But two questions, like what is one reflection you have about the two, anything you want to say positive, negative, that will be very useful for us, and one takeaway, something that you take. Maybe it's from the two, maybe it's from the conversation, something that you're like a question or something. You don't need to speak.
No. I have to go. I have a meeting.
Okay, have a nice meeting. Yeah. So we have a marker and it goes around. So whoever wants to start, and then we go around. And if you don't want to share, but it will be for us, for the project, to be good to like a reflection and a takeaway. It could be just a few sentences, just for us to get a sense of how is it. Or you can just share it. So the marker is like the microphone. So whoever, just a bit of an order. So whoever starts and then goes in a circle. So that's my suggestion. So who is ready? Yeah. And then you pass it on.
Now we are very in the circle because we are.
Yeah, I mean we are.
Apart from this EUSAIR part, we are all partners in the net.
No, but that's also useful because they didn't know the tool. So for us.
No. But I mean that now we made. I was looking around because we are all from the audience.
We could do a
for us.
It's our invited guests.
Yes. Because I'm thinking. Sorry, I'm also need.
Do you want to go first.
Your reflection. Perhaps just shortly.
Yeah.
Also,
So if you need to go.
Also to the meeting on it. I'm thinking because we are partners in a project, but let's say for us, I'm thinking how we can, because it's very interesting, very useful. I would say this. I will focus perhaps on this exercise now. I was thinking in my head. I think also, let's say, so what? And I will come back to the tomorrow in the sense what we can do in EUSAIR. Now I'm thinking, yes. So actually, what we can do. So I'm thinking, I don't know. Let's say at least, okay. Of course, we are partners in the project. We are not many people now here. So I'm just thinking how we can connect and somehow put heads together with you, or just or among us, but not, let's say, to get these things lost now. So
if I could make a suggestion, let's say EUSAIR or other governance approach should be there in the missing part. Should be conceived as mechanism that enable the valorization of good niches and helping to transform the regimes, also of the national policies. Because
here.
Oh, yes, and well, so there is not now in the modern study, because not why they made EUSAIR is a way, should be a mechanism promoting the change in the desired direction. Now the issue is, have it worked in that direction? So this could be maybe also a good supporting way to maybe revise the action plan.
Yes.
Starting from the decided field and then interpreting the role of EUSAIR that for me could be a real good enabler, since it is not a single country, because there are in each country there are political problems, you have consensus.
Yes.
Now EUSAIR is a little bit distant. So can support the countries and the regions and local authorities to enable this kind of change. So recognizing this kind of niches in order to transform them possibly in the
just small intermezzo. What I can see now, only let's say 1 year later, is that, for example, we have these pillars. So we have, let's say, for regimes, we have, it's brutal, but let's say we all have more or less people, among regimes talking among themselves. Perhaps, I don't know. I'm just
they are doing on their own, basically.
Yes,
the case in EUSAIR.
I think so.
Within the EUSAIR, you have several layers who are doing on their own, and in general, I suppose from the very start to the very end, we'll collaborate closely.
Yes.
And since we do have pillars are thematically defined, and they are basically hiding behind the pillars. And when you are in pillar, basically they are between themselves, cannot find cooperation. And what has happened in the last perspective in EUSAIR, we haven't achieved anything that was tangible. The way that we are trying to reach in the end, because we were, at least that's my opinion, maybe a bias, that we weren't adapting all the way. We stayed rigid. It was case in EUSAIR. Basically, from the very start, as we were talking through the time, you need to readapt the ideas and the goals. And that wasn't the case in EUSAIR, because they were keeping with the pillars and with the goals, with the pillars and the basic flagships that were initially.
I think it was also too little, perhaps, connectivity with these niches.
All the people see the TFG, but maybe for others it's boring. Exactly part of this regime. There was no ADP, as they say, it's my specialization strategy. So in the macroregion, there was no idea of having a discovery process of what is outside the niches. Because
the niches were missing.
The niches idea is not pointed by the ministry.
The connectivity with the niches and linking them on board. So that's how I would think about this regional, because it was like ministries levels meeting and then it was boring for them. So of course you just,
it was basically juggling within landscape regions that they didn't even reach the niches.
Yeah, they didn't even. But the local, I don't think they did reach the. That's why I found with with this regional approach. Let's say to go lower. Let's say from the regime, okay, niches, but let's say to be here somewhere to bring them up, and because these are, I think, quite, at least in our case, I think, very rigid.
I will stop you now, because this seems like a conversation that's good, but it's very much. No, absolutely. We took that question.
I was over there being in a session which was basically in different way discussing the similar way, how solving the issues in the next perspective.
Innovations but this is it's very nice picture. I think it's very nice exercise to see where what you need actually to achieve desired state.
Yeah, and maybe we can work on it, because you are in the you and you are in,
We are not in the.
but she is also an EUSAIR. You are also an EUSAIR. And you are also
Me,
an EUSAIR.
Yeah, me.
Then how can maybe we can help with methodology?
Indeed, the methodology and pattern, which
yes,
will be
yes, yes, and how to bring them on.
We're happy
Yes,
to
yes.
help because one of the main objectives of this innovation camp also was we were not many people,
Yes.
but at the end it was how can we collaborate in order that
We can make we can make perhaps another event because we still have I think we need to have another event on innovation until 1st of September. I know it's very short time, but and online is perhaps not so much useful. But I'm just thinking if we have some event somewhere and we can join them, this invite more like innovation smart specialization event, but it's just an idea. Let's say.
Yeah, and in this case, we were speaking hypothetically, and in that very occasion, we might have stakeholders who do have experience, who might reuse just the methodology to come with their input and to put it all together. Yeah. Basically, we're going to get the outputs or result that might be measurable.
Working at the national or
Blue Growth,
with smart specialization strategies, because it's the people you want to connect what's happening at this level with what is happening in EUSAIR.
Yes, I'm thinking there are 4 pillars.
Yeah, but the Blue Growth, they are mostly dealing with innovation.
Yes.
So,
it could be a tentative that you do with an exam, one of the pillars now to see how it works. Because you cannot do in general. No, you have to do because each people have totally different knowledge now. So
yes,
with a pillar, maybe the more sensitive the one you
yes,
the Blue Growth.
That's right. Yes,
The glue on Biomed, there are some others.
Irene, the coordinator of Blue Growth pillar from Greece.
No,
Irene, they changed?
Yeah, they changed 2 months ago, yes. Yes, but they have their own issues now. I think with this green agenda. Yeah, they want to bring this agriculture or the green inside, but they don't want to have green. And now we are thinking, shall we have how to bring this green agriculture inside? But yeah, but I guess also for a new period, all the pillars. All the pillars. I don't know.
Missions,
yeah, basically. In our case,
let's try to change one.
But basically, there are synonyms.
Missions,
different perspectives.
Missions is static. Missions, you have an vision.
Just terminology, but in terms of meaning, pillars.
You are there and you protect the pillar. And mission is you want to move somewhere. It's important, the difference.
But we can have a mission in the pillar.
But if they only change the mission and they will make pillars,
we're going to make all the mission for the same.
Yes, because maybe in this case could be easier because since the pillar is new, they need to start thinking, they need to appoint the people to start thinking how they create these plans. So we can start also from the beginning.
Social.
Also social.
Perhaps social they're establishing, so might be a little bit.
They are quite eager, they are not worn out like the other courses. They are fully into it. Maybe
or 1 or 2, yes, you can start in the sense
because there is a content, here is a form and basically
methodology to support, but you need to
of course, filling it with the content.
This
I'm willing to go, but thank you very much for this. But we see us still there. Yes. 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 Also, Jill said actually that the results of the workshops will be used. I don't know. Did you agree somehow with them that you will make that?
No, you write in the description. As I said, it was our hope.
You made it clear.
The objective is written that, but we said that we hope now. We didn't write, we hope.
It would be nice to have kind of an perhaps like a report, or let's say a report or suggestion, or perhaps more report. Yes, absolutely.
The result of the workshop is
yes. We can have part of the discussion, especially with the social, but also with the other end. We can decide something.
But these we can use, I guess, in every pillar.
Basically, it's replicable.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
Of course.
Adapted.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe somebody else, I think Fernando wanted to, or did we finish with EUSAIR? No, we can just finish
two suggestions not related to EUSAIR if you want. But the meeting was
Fernando wanted a couple of things. The first is that I enjoy very much participating in this innovation camp and discuss on the many different topics that these cards include. And I think that this is really relevant to understand, for all of us to understand how are the interactions between the different elements of this system and the importance of taking into account this vision, this desired future, this scope, this frame, or whatever we can call it as the final objective that we would like to have. Taking into account that working in innovation is always a very unstable framework, of course. You cannot lead innovation. You can support innovation, but innovation is going to happen. You never know where and when. No? So, but this exercise, in essence, I think that gives you some tools in order to be more aware of the needs and more aware of the possibilities of the interaction and the conversation. And I think that is
it. Well, two suggestions, but very easy and practical. I would keep more room for the niches for empty cards. I mean, to allow people to suggest niches they have experiences, because this is not and so less maybe pre-defined, because there are really many, and we didn't have time to propose others. But while maybe Vrbas factors or regimes are more difficult to propose, niches maybe now you have experiences or something like, for example, we have the community cooperatives that for me was a good niche to propose. But so the more room to do that. And I don't know, I would introduce something like sort of enables that they stay there helping, because now our discussion really went a lot, not so much in the niches that naturally grow, because the trends are so strong that they grow, but also that we always say that they need support, and often we talk about public support. So I think introducing there, so this multi-level perspective, Vaclav Fernandez variant, with the enabler, which are the enablers that can help them, because the discussion went naturally in that direction. No? So I think this should come from the other model, but we can integrate, and so we have a new, I don't know, in the discussion we had, I think it emerged in any case, no? So it would be nice maybe if we have another category or something. Yeah.
But yeah, it was just an introduction.
No, but if we think about the future, because I don't know, I understood that the discussion went in that direction, what we can do to promote that. So I would promote.
Yes, thank you very much for this exercise, and I really like it. I really interesting, and I'm quite surprised that someone from EUSAIR appreciate our.
They will hire me very soon.
Yes.
So,
no, maybe I have some suggestion too, as Alessandro said. If we need to replicate this exercise in the future, maybe for other topic related with the innovation, I think that niche, as Alessandro said, niches must be more open. So one card, and also here the visions, because you propose some vision, but probably if maybe participants can contribute to give their visions, their future vision. Probably, of course, landscape and regime are pretty much defined. And so my question is, the idea is also to replicate this.
Not replicate.
To propose views. Anyway, I do appreciate.
Well, I think internally, and
No, sorry, maybe, yes.
Question is that maybe I didn't catch it. Who defined the design vision? Is that the public administration, the rural people? Because, for instance, okay, transport and mobility means something for rural people. Multi-level governance model, maybe far less. So, how do you? Because that's the core of the common vision.
Yeah, it was more to start the conversation. In our case, it was more like a workshop thing. It's not a real.
It comes from your idea.
And we were thinking of the time. I mean, I'm not.
Ideally,
we want. Yeah, it was more like to save time and to provoke the discussion. But I totally agree.
Who's the forum? I mean, to decide the design vision.
No, maybe
it depends on the
having a
challenge.
lot of cards, we concentrate our attention to this card, but
Yes.
this is just also to use white cards that we didn't have time to think about it. We concentrate only to.
It is a common vision. It should be common to all.
Yes, exactly. You have to understand
all
what
stakeholders.
exactly.
All
But
stakeholders.
here we are so different that it was interesting.
Yeah, we thought maybe the vision should be a little bit already done. Kind of for the sake of
I
the
understand that
exercise.
for the sake of the exercise, of course. But as a methodology, it's
In the
also
methodology,
fun
it's
to be.
Maybe these people of here, it took more than 1 year to define the vision for the stakeholders. It's not that
Also
easy.
because what we see, that they are resistant to change. So if you only have people who live in a regime, most likely it's going to be difficult.
Usually are they start.
Yes, but the vision.
But they need to work with them. And it's a vision related to a challenge. Notice what territory
In general.
we have the challenge of the livestock intensive problem. And maybe this model is not sustainable. We cannot produce because of the laws are changing in the European Union. We need to rethink our whole model. What do we want to work for? The ones who want to continue, they can stay there. But at the end, people are coming, and institutions have taken ownership of this process that started with this nation. Because public administrations never start the transformation. It's very difficult for a government to say, now we are going to fight against our policies and we are going to do something. This never happens.
We should have arrows. More arrows in that sense, connecting the stuff. That's the question of the rules.
But there are examples where public administrations need to take to make decisions that are against some people. For instance, the closure of coal mines in Spain, because in Germany they are not closing it.
You can think of other possibilities to do in that region.
Yeah, exactly. So it is the problem is given. So in Spain the mine coals are closed and are leaving the region without economic support, without a culture of the coal, without then you can support the transition and you can ask people what they want. They would like that. Indeed, regional studies about
Because what he said, the timing is also very important.
Yeah, the timing is very important. But what I know, for instance, in one of the Spanish regions, 5 years ago, the region was against the closure of the mine. Okay, then 3 years later, it was obvious that the mine would close, and it closed, and nobody had prepared for that. And then you have to care also of these people who are losing. Of course, they're losing their ways of life, they're losing their jobs, they're losing a lot. You have to care about that. Otherwise, you will find resistance. Yeah. Otherwise, they will be against the climate change, of course. Yes. And you know where you want to go.
I don't want to keep everyone because it's already 5. So if anybody wants to, you don't need to feel like hostages here. But any other comments, welcome.
So I'm just thinking when we do the lab with the CPM marker, so I try to have in mind our work that we did there. Would it make sense to do this? Identify together all the regime, the trends, and then divide the groups to work on one specific So, I mean, for instance, we identify among all together in a collective session first for desired outcomes, and then we work for groups on the niches that can drive us toward one of the specific objectives.
So basically,
one part together, one part collective, and then work on one specific of the objectives. And also thinking that we might have technical and political parts together. Also because this suggestion about having more free cards for the niches, depending on who is going to attend. If I'm thinking it's more the political level that is there, they might apply them on the niches. If it's with the technical level, maybe not. Yeah. But to be honest, not always we manage to have technical levels. Sometimes it's just technical, sometimes it's political. So this is something. Exactly.
You can have them in your back pocket.
No, that's why I'm saying that I find the cards interesting. Maybe I'm just thinking about the moment we do it with CPMR. I'm just saying for the specific case when we replicate or we transform this activity with CPMR because it's in the plan.
But we can talk to you about how to structure the session, because what I do sometimes with cards, I have not in this model. I have the cards, but I let first people to talk, and if they get stuck, I take the cards out and we start discussing. So you can play a little bit with having and not having. So it's like depending on the situation and adapting some cards and then the other ones you use depending on how people are.
Like when I first started the workshop and stuff, what I realized is that it's very people that we don't share the same language. Not like we don't share like about the concepts, no? No, but to me, multi-approach is blah blah blah, and then we lose, I don't know, half hour just talking about the concept. If we share the language beforehand, then the discussion goes to another level.
It's to bring discussion to another level. And when you have the card, you bring the discussion to another level, because if not, they are going to say the traditional things.
But also be careful not to be too suggestive. Yeah. So that's kind of the balance. Because otherwise it's just putting cards around. It's not a play. It's people.
And the other thing is rather a question. Did you decide this model for a particular purpose, or
this is a model that exists?
No, I mean, why did you decide to work on this model and not the two-loop, for instance?
Yeah, because
I think
we thought that
the system mapping is almost comprehensive. The two-loop, for instance, is how to imagine that you move from one declining system to imagine one. And but you need to understand first what system is. That a system is also influenced landscape, the niches. So this is much more comprehensive in my view. So if you are thinking about
the second one with the two-loop without this one, for me it's not.
Two-loops is the second part.
Two-loops is very hard to facilitate in some
The
contexts.
thing of facilitating the dying system, not
It's even the language there. Even the language there, you need to change it.
It was like, who knows who come, young people and old people. So it was, it allows you more freedom.
It's a bit more practical.
To change things. But maybe for European, it's better the other one. So it depends. It depends on the objective. You need to read the
But when you start
Not thinking about the audience.
I was thinking because it's also what you want to get out. Maybe it's another model. So just a model.
Yeah, indeed. But as Alessandro said, basically predefining the audience and the targeting the participants who are taking the place, basically gonna decide what we're gonna get in the end. Their input, because my perspective is different from somebody who is coming from local level. We are, even though I have been working on local level, working privately, but at the time being, I'm thinking and implementing from the perspective of national level, and he's contrary, doing everything that isn't aligned with their local policy. We do have, he's more in the niches, I'm more in the landscape, and you're finding a way how.
But you need people everywhere.
That's the way targeting the audience, we're taking part in whatever the reusement of this pattern that we use is quite important.
And we also say with all the tools, it's sometimes more important the process that people go through rather than the result. Of course, the result is important because you don't take a decision, but the whole conversation, if you make it in a new way, then it maybe brings you to a different level of, after that.
You want different results, you need
a different way of talking. Otherwise,
you have the same.
And sometimes the tool is not so important, but what is provoking.
Yeah, because what has been happening, the results that have been good and effective, they have been replicated on the landscape of national, because we stick to it, it's good. And in the meantime, in niches and the time and happening that were present during the time, they completely changed the landscape. Even though the landscape, the national is keeping with something that's going well. I know. Walking paths, sewers, energy subsidies and such, because they do have certain results in that regard. And in the meantime, niches and ground is sending completely different signals in terms of timing, what has been done in between, and they are keeping the playing safe.
Yeah,
that's something that we need to be changed. Yeah.
But it's the way, we are not saying you don't have to play safe, no, this is not the message. But you need to be aware of the things happening and always keep looking. And then trying to have some spaces to test and to develop things that can work in a different way. And if you test them, they work, then you can sustain changes. But it's not like this won't work, we try to do it.
I mean, this is also a specific problem because this is a problem of policy. So how you make a policy that you make the best of
We don't need you. Sorry to keep you.
I do something that works.
We should finish in 5 minutes, but you can.
Because there are something new, so you're always late. And with regulation, it's even worse.